Ange Postecoglou has been sacked and Thomas Frank is coming in as a new Tottenham manager. For those who don't know, Thomas Frank has been at Brentford for 7 years, got them promoted to the Premier League and has them punching over their weight. His style is all about high pressing, intensity and tactical flexibility. He switches between the 3-5-2 against big opponents, and we can also call it the 5-3-2 also, or the 4-3-3 formations. He's also a master at finding balance through data. Thomas Frank develops players. He loves versatile players who can play different positions, and his teams are absolute workhorse. That's what Spurs need right now. So today I'm ranking every Spurs transfer rumor and based how they fit under Thomas Frank system. Let's get into it. The first rumor I've been seeing is Jack Grealish to Tottenham. We know that he's been pushed out by Manchester City this summer. He's not even in the list for the World Cup, which I think is crazy. He's been paid 100 million and he's being left out on a big tournament like the World Cup. I think a move to Spurs would be the wrong one. I don't think Jack Grealish fits in that first team. There is already Madison Kulusevski who can play in those central roles. We know that Kulusevski comes in for the right side. I doubt that Jack Grealish can go to Spurs. I think if Jack Grealish leaves Manchester City, I think it's time to maybe go and play for a smaller club, like not small in terms of I don't want to say like Crystal Palace is a small team, but he has to go to a team where he'll play week in, week out. And I don't think at Tottenham it would be possible. So for me, Jack Grealish at Spurs for me would be the wrong move. What about Morten Hjulmand, the Danish player? I've seen Spurs linked to Morten Hjulmand. I'm a big fan of this player because I think he would fit in this team, not because Thomas Frank is Danish as him, but because I think Spurs kind of needs player with his profile. We don't really have a leader in that midfield. We have Betan, who's more a proven player. If not, we have young players like Sarr, like Bergval, like Archie Gray. We need a bit of experience, but we don't need also a player who's too old that we can play for the long term. So for me, Morten Hjulmand, I think he can bring in experience. He comes in from a sporting team which has dominated in Portugal. He's a captain. He's been the youngest Serie A captain. For me, I think he's would be a perfect fit. That's my first perfect fit. What about Barcola? For me, Barcola, I don't see that happening because I doubt that he would leave this PSV sporting project. They just won the Champions League. He's one of the most important players. Like, why would he leave PSG to go to Tottenham? I don't think that would happen. But if it would happen, Spurs would need to go for him. What about Adam Wharton, a player that I like? The next big English midfielder. I think he's had a mixed season with injuries, but when he was there, I think he was a big part of Crystal Palace's success also in the second half of the season. But can he move to Tottenham? Because I think if Adam Morton is to leave, I think there will be bigger teams which will be ready to splash the money. I'm talking about a team like Liverpool. I'm talking about a team like Manchester City. I would put that in meh. I don't see Spurs splashing the money. Daniel Levy, we know his strategy when it comes to transfer. I don't see him paying that much money for him. But if that would happen, that would be a top move. Maybe I will put Adam Morton in good addition or even great fit depending on the money. What about Moise Kean? So Moise Kean has played in the Premier League. We've seen how it has gone for him at Everton, but he comes from a great season. Don't get it twisted with his season at Everton. He's become a far better player. He's one of the best strikers in Serie A right now. But would Moise Kean move to Tottenham? I think that's unrealistic. I think Tottenham has found their best striker there, number 9, the ideal Hurricane replacement in Dominic Solanke. Where would Moise Kean play? I'm not sure about that, so I'll put him in, especially for a fee around 50 million, which is the fee that Fiorentina would ask. What about the Italian midfielder Davide Fratesi? I really like Fratesi as a player. I think it's It's unlucky that he hasn't been playing that much in Serie A because of Barrera, Çalhanoğlu, because of the great midfield they have at Inter Milan. I think he would start for many teams in Europe. Is that the case of Spurs? I don't think so. I think Spurs are crowded in that area of the pitch. They have Pap Matsa, they have Bergvall who's coming in, who's a long-term project. And if I add a midfielder to that, Spurs team would be maybe a sort of number six, more like a destroyer, like Hjulmand. So for me, Fratesi, I think would be an upgrade over players like Pap Matsar, but I think those players like Pap Matsar, like Lucas Bergvall, I think they're part of this Spurs long-term project, and that's why they've to bring in Thomas Frank as the manager to make them progress. We know his ability to progress young players also. So where would Davide Fratesi fit in this team? That's the question. So for me, it would be me. I don't see that happening. I think Davide Fratesi, if he leaves Inter Milan, it will be for a team where he starts week in, week out. The next player is also evolving in Serie A, and it's Randal Kolo Muani. What about Kolo Muani? I think he stays at Juve for me this next season. I think Juve will want to extend his loan spell with PSG. I think PSG would have any problem of loaning him another season and maybe selling him for even a bigger fee. I don't think Randall Colomani is a bad player. I think he just doesn't fit in Luis Enrique's system, but I think he would even his playing style. I think he would fit in the Premier League. He can play in the three positions up front, play as a striker, and play as left wing, as a right wing, and come in and play that sort of striker in Thomas Frank team. We know that Thomas Frank likes to switch his formation to a back three and two players in front. I would see him partnering him with a player like Dominic Soranke. He would be a good option, but the question I have is at what price? Because we know that PSG have bought him for around 90 million. Will they sell him for under 30 million? I don't think so. So if he goes back to PSG and PSG want to loan him or to sell him, then I think it will be a good addition for that Spurs team. He will be even an upgrade over Walner and Matisse Tel. What about the best English center back, Mark Guehi? If you have been following this channel, you know I'm a big fan of Mark Guehi. For me, he's the defender that every top Premier League team should be looking at. I'm talking about Chelsea, I'm talking about Newcastle, I'm talking about Liverpool. I think there is a deal to make there with Mark Guehi. He's out of contract next summer. He's left-footed. He's 24. He's captain. I don't see any reason why top teams shouldn't look at him. But is that the case for Spurs? I don't think so, because I don't think that Spurs' main issue is the center back right now. They have Van de Ven, who's a left-footed center back, excellent. His final, we've seen how he's missed to Spurs this season. I think when he's fit, Van de Ven is really a great option. And to replace him, you've invested on Radu Dragushin, who's really young defender. I don't think he's a bad defender. He hasn't been the best defender for now, but that's the type of player I'd see Thomas Frank develop. Let's remember that you also bought Kevin Danso in January, so I don't think there is space for a defender at such a big fee. If Mark Guehi's contract runs up next summer, then that's a different conversation. If you have the opportunity to sign Mark Guehi for free, then that's a different conversation. But for now, I don't think Spurs would need to pay that money for Mark Guehi when you have another good option at that position. So for me, that would be a wrong move. What about Jamie Gittens? Apparently, he's on the move to a Premier League team. It would be Newcastle. It should be Chelsea also. But Spurs has been interested in him for a while also. And I have to say, I love this kind of transfer. I love when Premier League teams go and bring English players who are excelling in the other leagues. And Jamie Gittens, he's coming out from his best season in his footballing career. He's scored 8 goals in the Bundesliga this season. I think he scored about 4 in the Champions League also. I don't remember his beginning of the season where he was incredible under Nuri Sahin, but Niko Kovac doesn't seem to fancy him a lot. I think this is the kind of player that would fit in Thomas Frank team. He has pace, he's electric, so I think he would develop into a top player and who would be he would become the perfect Son replacement in that Spurs team. But unfortunately, I think he's going to go to Chelsea. I think he would want to join Enzo Maresca. He would want to join Cole Palmer, Liam Delap, Tozin. So I think as a Manchester City academy graduate, he would want to continue that path and going to Chelsea. So if Spurs somehow manages to sign him, that would be a great fit for me. What about Jan Bisek? I have to tell that I haven't watched a lot about him because I haven't been watching Serie A this season a lot. So the only few times I've seen Jan Bisek was in the Champions League. I know his story as he was one of the biggest Bundesliga prospects, then got injured and it kind of made him regress, and Inter gave him a chance at that top level again, and he's taken very well because I've seen him play in big games. I've seen him against Barcelona, really good defender. I think Inter wouldn't have considered 5 goals if he would have started the Champions League final also. But as I said with Mark Gay, I don't think that Spurs need a defender, and that they already are crowded in the defense without injuries next season. I hope they won't have injuries next season. So I don't think that would be a priority signing. But the only thing I would give him over Margay is his tactical adaptability. He can play as a center back, can play at the right back, can play as a left back, and we know that Thomas Frank again would love this kind of players. So if you can get him for a decent price again, maybe that would be still a meh, because I don't think that they need that kind of player. What about Ademola Lookman, the best Serie A left winger for me? He's coming from a good season, not his best season as last season, where he was the best African player of the year. I think it's time for him to move on to Atalanta. I think Atalanta are going to regress next year. They have appointed Ivan Juric as their next coach, and they have lost Gasperini, who was a big factor of their recent success. Their best players would want to leave, and that's the case maybe for Ademola Lookman. I think in this list, he's the closest player we have to Son in his prime. I think he's capable of creating goals. He's capable of having a decent output. Also, we know that left wing position will be the priority this summer with Son leaving. So for me, Ademola Lookman would be even a fit, and I think he would reach even higher levels under Thomas Frank. And I think that's the kind of player that Thomas Frank would want into his team, because again, he can play in a back three system with being a second strike option, as what he did with Gasperini in that Atalanta team, but can also play in a left wing position in that 4-3-3 under Thomas Frank. So for me, that tactical adaptability also makes him a perfect fit for Tottenham. And I doubt that he goes to Barcelona. He's been linked heavily to Barcelona. I doubt that Barcelona moves for him this summer. So if there is a team that would move him and he would be interested in joining, that would be Tottenham. And I don't think Atalanta would ask a big fee for Ademola Lookman. Depending on the fit, I think that's a perfect fit. So I'll place it in perfect fit for now. What about Piero Incapi? Piero Incapi is the Ecuadorian center back playing at Leverkusen. He's really, I think, even become better this season. His numbers really look great. Defensive abilities. He's really a great defender, but can also play as a left back. Really, that kind of defender. I see them playing in the Premier League. He's been linked heavily to Spurs, but also to Liverpool. Maybe he would join the Premier League this summer. But again, I don't think Spurs need a center back. Is that the case? Because he can play left back. Would he be a great Udogie backup? I think so, but at the price that Leverkusen will ask, around 55 million, I think it's the wrong move again. I don't think that's the priority when you have players like Archie Gray who can play in that role, Sergio Reguilon who's still there. You have Udogi, you have Jet Spence also who can play as a left back. I don't think that's the priority. What about Eberechi Eze? If you've seen my video making the three best moves for top six clubs, then you know that Eberechi Eze would be perfect fit for this Tottenham team. I think in terms of output, he would bring that creativity that Son brought in, and I think he's even a better player than James Madison. I know that James Madison has been a lot injured in the last few seasons, and I think bringing in a player like Eberechi Eze, who's coming in from a top season again with Crystal Palace, he's just won them a title, I think would be a great move. And I would be curious to see how Thomas Frank would even make him a better player. I'd be curious to see that, but Eberechi Eze for me, he's a perfect fit for almost every top six club. He can play on the left, but can also play in the central roles. His output, his creativity that he brings in is such important. So for me, that's a perfect fit, especially for a team losing Son. What about Joao Gomez, the next player on this list? Joao Gomez, I think he would be a good addition to that Spurs midfielder. I don't think we really have a profile like him. We have sort of Rodrigo Betancourt, who's a sort of box-to-box midfielder, but we know how injury prone Rodrigo Betancourt he is. Would have Joao Gomez, who's a really a bulldog on the field. He would fit in that Spurs team under Thomas Frank. He would be a bulldog in terms of pressing intensity for Thomas Frank. I think he would be a good addition depending on the price that Wolves would ask for. So for me, I'll put him in a good addition depending again of the price that Wolves would ask. What about Nico Paz? Let's be honest, he's off to Madrid. I think Nico Paz is off to Madrid. And if he doesn't move to Madrid this season, I think he'll be next season. He's really a generational player, really good on the ball. My favorite player to watch in Serie A this season. He's classic number 10. I think if he came to Premier League, it would be a joy to watch. But would he come to Premier League in Spurs? I don't think so. Spurs have got Madison in that role, Kulusevski in that 10 role. Again, if we bring in Eberechi, they can also play in that 10 role. So where does Nico Paz play? I doubt that he would be moving to Tottenham, but his price is really interesting. Apparently, Como is asking 30 million, if not wrong. So that's an interesting price for many European teams, but that's not the move that we're looking for Tottenham Hotspur. So for me, I'll put in May. I don't see the tactical fit there. What about Tyler Dibling, one of the best English prospect? He's been heavily linked to Tottenham. You've seen rumors linking him a lot to Tottenham. I think he's the club where he's the most linked to. Right winger can play also in that 10 role. Really good on the ball. I think his numbers doesn't tell the whole story of the player he is. I think he's been really a solid player for Southampton this season, but unfortunately his team got down and he wasn't playing the best setup possible. I would be curious to see again how Thomas Frank develops him as a player. The only thing about Tyler Dibling that makes me hesitate about him, it's the price tag. We know that Southampton are asking around, hear me out, 100 million for Tyler Dibling, which I think it's incredible fee for for a player of his quality. I mean, he's really good, really great player, but he's not worth 100 million. And that's one thing I don't like in this modern football. The price tags. At some point, clubs should just refuse to pay this nonsense, because you can't pay 100 million for a player who's just had his first season. He didn't even score 10 Premier League goals. 100 million used to buy you a Ballon d'Or player. Tyler Dibling, it's his first season in pro, and he's already worth that price tag. For me, at that price, I don't see Tottenham making the move. I know that they're heavily interested. Again, it would be in that right wing role, where he would compete with Kulusevski, compete with the likes of Brennan Johnson, with Wilson Odebe, but I don't see that happening for me, especially at that price. I will be interested to see how Spurs makes it work. So guys, I want to know your thoughts in the comments. Is this Spurs team really going to compete for the Champions League? Do you see them finishing higher in the Premier League also this season? Are they gonna compete under the first season of Thomas Frank? So I'm ready to hear your comments down below. So I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.